Have you ever wondered why certain thoughts keep running through your mind over and over again? Well, in this video, we'll explore the fascinating connection between our thoughts, emotions, and brain chemistry. Later, I'll reveal some different techniques I've used to help rewire my brain for happiness and success. Don't forget to watch till the end for these essential insights. I have been listening to law of attraction videos for a number of years now. Several years ago, my son sent me a video by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a neuroscientist and leader in the mind-body connection, and I listened to it. I was completely blown away. Dispenza talked about how we have certain thoughts or types of thoughts in our mind, and how we keep repeating those thoughts in our mind over and over, and they become habitual. According to him, it's not just some random occurrence, but an ingrained habit. Dr. Dispenza explains that every thought we have creates a biochemical reaction in our brain, which then generates an emotion. So for example, if at the end of the month I'm worried I'm not going to have enough money to pay bills, that thought is going to create an emotion, usually fight or flight, fear type response. My brain will then release those hormones, particularly the cortisol and adrenaline hormone, and then I will feel anxious and tense. I didn't realize how powerful our emotions were to our body and that addictive nature that they could have. What's the science behind this? Essentially, our brains have neural pathways that act like highways for our thoughts. The more we think about a certain thought, the more that pattern gets ingrained and strengthened in the brain, creating a neural pathway, which acts like a well-worn path. Kind of like the ones we get in our yard when the dogs will run around the outside perimeter of fence. That dog keeps running and running and running. That's how the neural pathway becomes in our brain. Since our brains are designed to be efficient, that well-worn path becomes an established default way of thinking about a particular topic. Our brain doesn't want to create new neural pathways all the time, so it looks for strong connections, repetitive connections, and then establishes that as a default mechanism. Essentially, over time, that well-worn path becomes a habit. But what's really interesting about this is that our bodies actually become addicted to the emotions that or those types of thoughts bring. And it will then crave that emotional response. Our subconscious goes, oh, we need to be feeling this way. Let's look for thoughts, let's think about thoughts that are going to help generate this type of emotion. Oftentimes, we are not even aware that we are actually doing this. I know I certainly wasn't aware that I had that habit to just keep finding thoughts that were fearful. Our body knows the way to achieve certain emotions it craves, and thoughts are the easiest way to create that. So a feedback loop is created. We think a thought, feel an emotion, then we think more thoughts to keep reinforcing those emotions. And we don't even realize this is happening. When our body receives that emotion, it is satisfied. Mission accomplished. In other words, without realizing it, we become addicted to our own thoughts. Who would have thought? I know I certainly didn't realize that was a thing. That video that I listened to was the first time that I realized that our thoughts could be addictive. I had no idea. I knew that our subconscious could create and draw us to situations, perhaps unhealthy relationships, things like that, over and over and over, and it would be a repetitive pattern until we realized it. But I didn't really understand the depths of how our thoughts actually do that as well. Just something simple as what we are thinking in that very moment. I know for me, I grew up in a parenting household where fear was a predominant emotion. I remember even as a grade schooler being afraid to accidentally break the rules and I would get in trouble. And then fast forward into adulthood, I even chose my first husband out of fear. I was afraid and wanted somebody who I thought would be very stable emotionally, and he appeared to be. I thought he would be stable and not want to drink a lot and that have that type of chaos in my life. So I thought he would be. So a lot of those thought processes of fear went into that decision for that relationship. And I didn't even exactly realize I was doing it out of fear. After hearing that video and examining my thoughts, I really started to realize that fear was a very predominant mechanism in my daily way of thinking. I was just blown away. And I started looking for ways that I could change that because I realized, okay, this is unhealthy and it doesn't feel good. So, what are ways I can work through this and improve this habit? Have any of you guys heard about this before? Where our thoughts are addictive to our body and subconsciously we seek out ways to make those feelings happen? If you have, comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. The great news is that with any addiction or habit, we can find ways to help change that. And we can help rewire our brain and make new neural pathways so that our brain defaults to those rather than the old ones. It can take some time to rewire our brain, but in the end, it's worth it because you feel better and what you think about brings about good things. One of the first things I did, well, of course, as with any habit, is being aware that it's something you do. Without awareness, we don't realize it's something we need to work on. And I wouldn't have been aware had I not watched Dr. Dispenza's video. The first thing I did was being aware of my thoughts throughout the day. I would catch myself having fearful thoughts. Oh, how are the roads today? Is there snow? Maybe the roads are icy. Are my kids okay? They're driving. I heard a siren. Or what? Is that my kid? I would catch myself or watching the news, looking for fearful thoughts on the news. And when I did catch myself thinking those things, I noted it and went, oh, there's a fearful thought. And then I would not allow my brain to keep going down that rabbit hole and keep following that thought and worrying about the money or worrying about my kids. I'd find other ways to deal with it. Either I would change the thought or I would put on something that I would be interested in thinking about that was positive. Perhaps a video on YouTube about law of attraction or some other thing that was uplifting, maybe a funny show. I am also trying to rewire my thinking even unconsciously. So I will put like I am affirmations or positive things like that and let them run in the background because my brain is still hearing that even if I'm not actually paying attention to it. It's one way that I try to work through my subconscious layers. Also, when I go to sleep, I am careful about not letting my mind wander. So I make sure I'm either going to sleep doing a meditation or listening to something semi-interesting that's a positive thing. It seems like when you lay down to sleep, your brain wants to run away and think about all the things that you really don't need to be thinking about. And a lot of them aren't positive things. So that's why I put on either a semi-interesting show, perhaps it's one I've seen before, and all I have to do is listen to it. Maybe I'll put on affirmations or something, just enough that I can fall asleep to it and my brain is less apt to want to wander out in the field all by itself and keep me awake and worry. And another thing that I do when I start having a lot of worry, let's say, again, a bill situation, and I'm concerned about whether or not I'll have enough money at the end of the month or the beginning of the month to pay bills. I know that I can sit and worry about that and concern and stew and think on that for a long period of time. But I remind myself that me thinking about it does not help solve the problem. All it does is make me feel bad and draw more negativity to myself. So I try to stop myself and think, this is not going to get you anywhere. It will not solve anything. Don't let yourself go there. And again, then I go back to something else I'm thinking about, either positive, about the wonderful, beautiful, sunny day that I had earlier today, or again, another way to distract my thinking so that I am not letting my brain wander all by itself. Another great method to do to help our thoughts is to have mindful meditations. And I have done these a lot, and I even will do them when I go to bed, as I mentioned before. And when you are meditating, just let those thoughts pass through your brain. Just observe them. Isn't that interesting? No judgment, and just let them pass. Don't invest time into stewing over the thoughts. It's one way you can then observe what thoughts you're having, but also it's a way to help disconnect the brain and the body a little bit. And when our mind is quiet, it actually helps build energy, a positive energy inside the brain. Another thing which falls along the meditation line is to do different visualization techniques. Primarily, I do them through guided meditations. Silva method is one that a lot of people use, and then there are other just topical guided meditations that are very helpful. And it's important to visualize what you want, incorporate all your feelings, your five senses, all of that into there, because when our brain thinks it's real, our subconscious wants to make that goal happen. So you imagine your positive future or a goal or an outcome you are looking to attain. Work on that, focus on that, feel that, thrive in that. Trying to work on building new pathways in my brain and having a good positive default mechanism for my brain to go is a daily thing. Sometimes it's an hourly thing. Some days are a lot more challenging than others. Some days I can fly through and not have very many issues. Other days it's a struggle and I'm feeling down and I'm feeling hopeless. And again, what I do, I go right back to finding another way to change my way of thinking because I'm going back to an old default and I don't want to. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. If you have any comments or thoughts on this, I'd love to hear them. Please comment below and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.